it can be really difficult to stock a pantry on a budget. So today I want to show you my personal recommendations for stocking a pantry from scratch with just $40. And not only am I going to show you the shopping and all of the prices, I'm going to include some simple recipes at the end of this video using just those pantry staples. So let's get started. I've gone ahead and written out the list of all of these pantry staples. This list is available in my new digital product, and it's printable. It's got extra space too, so you can write additional things that you might need from the store and take this entire thing with you, make some changes and notes and all of that. So let's head to the store and see what everything costs. Based on the majority of shopping that people have available to them, I am going to be looking at Dollar Tree, Aldi, and Walmart for all of these ingredients. So first, I'm here at Dollar Tree looking at flour. Flour is the #1 ingredient that I suggest keeping on hand. It is so versatile. You can get 2 pounds of flour at Dollar Tree for $1.25, and they do have other options like this organic coconut flour. You may also be able to find almond flour and other kinds of flours as well at Dollar Tree, although the selection seems to vary quite a bit depending on location. And if you were to head to Aldi, you could get 5 pounds for $2.45, and Walmart has 5 pounds for $2.67. So I do recommend getting this ingredient at a place like Aldi or Walmart, or even Target. They all have great prices. I just suggest buying it in a 5-pound container because you're going to get better bang for your buck that way instead of just buying the smaller container. Now, next, I recommend getting some oats. They are relatively inexpensive. I did not find any at my Dollar Tree, but some people do have that available. But you can get 42 ounces of oats at Aldi for around $3.89, $3.98 at Walmart. And of course, Target also has another selection as well for about the same price. And this is just going to be so versatile for breakfast, for dinners, like savory oats. You can use it to thicken soups. You can grind it up into a flour and make your own oat flour. You can even make a really delicious quick bread using oats. Just so many different things you can do with it. I highly recommend having that on hand. Next on the list as an absolute must-have is oil. Now you have a lot of options here to pick whatever kind of oil that you want. I know certain oils have gotten some bad press lately, and it is important to know what the oils can do so you know exactly what to buy. But you can get just a regular vegetable oil at Dollar Tree for about $1.25, but they do offer lots of different options like coconut oil for $1.25 or oil sprays. They even have oil and vinegar mixed together for, those dressings that you might want to make. But knowing what kind of oil you need is very important. So I prefer to have an avocado oil on hand. It's great for high heat cooking, and it's a neutral oil, so you can use it in dressings. Olive oil is really great for dressings as well, and better for lower heat cooking. And of course, vegetable oil, just your regular canola or any kind of oil like that, is great for high heat cooking as well. So your personal choice on oil is really going to depend on what you're doing in the kitchen. If you want to stir fry, if you want to bake veggies in the oven, you're going to want something that can handle some higher heat. So definitely think about that. But you can see avocado oil does cost a little bit more at $5.49, whereas the large container of vegetable oil like canola is only around $4 at Aldi, Walmart, and Target. And then coconut oil is a little bit more expensive as well most of the time at $4 or so. Again, $1.25 at Dollar Tree. And that can work really well for baking and again, low heat cooking as well. But you can see there's a lot of different options and a lot of different size options depending on how much you might need on hand. So definitely look at all of the different types of oils and then decide what kind of cooking you're going to do with the oils, and then just make a decision based on that. But again, a neutral oil is usually where it's at because you can use it for so many things, including baking, frying, stir frying, making dressings. So I would highly recommend starting with a neutral oil. But again, personal preference. The next item that I recommend is just regular table salt. You can get a pretty large container at Dollar Tree for 79 cents and at Aldi about the same size for 59 cents. And again, Target and Walmart again around the same price, around 60 cents or so. So if you were to buy it at Dollar Tree, you would not get as good of a deal, but if that's all you have available, it is a reasonable price. And they do have other salts as well, kosher salt, sea salt, and these wonderful little packs here of just salt salt and pepper together, which I think is a great value. At $1.25, you get salt and pepper because pepper does tend to be a little bit more expensive. That would be my top recommendation for a starter pantry, because you can see this black pepper here is $2.89. So with buying the salt and pepper combo, you end up getting a little bit more bang for your buck because you're getting both seasonings, and you don't need to start with a ton of salt. And salt is a pretty good price here, so you could just go get another container later when you do run out of salt, costing less than 70 cents or so. In my opinion, is a must-have, and that's coming from a household that uses less sodium. It's just a staple to add to baked goods like homemade breads. And again, you can add as much or as little as you like, but it really adds a ton of flavor. But if you want to lean more towards flavor without sodium, definitely invest in some seasonings. So I highly recommend getting chili powder, garlic powder, and onion powder to start. Those 3 seasonings are really great for adding a ton of flavor to dishes and all kinds of different dishes without really wondering, okay, what is this going to taste like? These are very familiar flavors and are really great for beginner cooks or for people who are just starting out and just needing to get a few types of seasonings. Now, Dollar Tree has a ton of options, including some that will be multiple types of seasonings in one bottle. So that's really great to look at. But you do want to look at the sizes here, because all of these are $1.25 and they vary in size. So $1.25 here for about 3 ounces of chili powder will run you about $1 at Aldi for 2.5 ounces, and 3 ounces at Walmart would be $1.18. So a little bit less expensive going somewhere else. But again, if you're at Dollar Tree, it's not a bad deal. It's just a little bit more expensive per ounce versus, say, an Aldi, Walmart, or Target. But you can get a lot of different seasonings here, like garlic and pepper put together, like this one I show here, some Cajun seasoning, and really just pick out some things that sound delicious to you. But having a couple of seasonings on hand to start is an absolute must. It's really going to just change the game for your budget-friendly cooking, because you won't feel like you're missing out at all. So just pick a couple that look good to you and start there. So that way you're not breaking the bank and you're not overdoing it buying a crazy set that costs $30 or $40 and includes all kinds of seasonings you've probably never heard of. And I promise you probably won't even use them, to be honest with you. But again, same prices at most stores, around $1.25 or less for seasonings. So go wherever you have, nearby Walmart, Target, Aldi, Dollar Tree, 99-cent store, whatever you've got. And I'm sure you'll find a nice selection of seasonings to choose from, and then just let your heart decide. This next ingredient is not going to be a surprise to most people, but it is rice. And you can find some really great rice at Dollar Tree. This jasmine rice is one of my favorites for $1.25, and the prices are very similar at Walmart, Target, and Aldi. So you can really get this ingredient basically anywhere for around the same price. I usually get this giant bag of jasmine rice for $5.89 at my local Aldi, and they have one for $5.97 at my local Walmart, just a giant one like that. And then if you want to just get regular white rice, $1.69 for 2 pounds at Aldi. You can see $1.99 at Target and 99 cents at Walmart for 1 pound. So it really varies depending on what kind of rice that you like. Brown rice has more nutrients, but rice is a really great ingredient to have on hand. It's got a lot of calories in it, some great nutrients, and it pairs really well with my next ingredient, beans. And this is the one ingredient I feel like every single pantry should have on hand if you are able to eat beans, because if you pair it with rice, you get a complete protein. It makes a full meal on a very, very low budget. Now, I will notice that at Dollar Tree here, they have 12 ounces only of black beans or great white northern beans for $1.25, but their pinto beans is a full 16 ounces or 1 pound for $1.25. So I was surprised to see that, because at Aldi, I can get 2 pounds of black beans for $2.85, and at Walmart, 2 pounds of black beans for $2.88, and 1 pound of black beans for $1.76. So the price is similar, but definitely a little less expensive at the other stores versus getting them at Dollar Tree. But the reason why I suggest dry beans is because every pound of dry beans makes about 3 cans worth of beans, and cans are about 88 cents to $1 per can, I've noticed. And that is just a huge huge price difference. So you are paying $3 for 3 cans, or you can pay about $1.75 instead. So you can see how much money you would save by just making the black beans yourself, and you can cook up an entire pound, separate them into smaller portions and freeze them, or if you know how to can, you can can them as well. Just make sure you look that up. I did notice they do have dry chickpeas as well at Target for about $2 a pound, and their lentils, which is my next item on the list, were $1.59 a pound at Walmart, $1.92, and I can get these for about $1.39 at Aldi, and these are really versatile and one of my top ingredients that I recommend. Next, of course, is pasta, and any kind of spaghetti noodle or penne. They usually run about $1 for a pound, depending on where you're going to get them from. Of course, Dollar Tree has these pretty large containers here, 20 ounces of pasta, not a pound, 20 ounces for $1.25. So again, pay special attention to the unit size. Now at Aldi, I can get some penne pasta for $1, spaghetti, I can get 2 pounds for $2.09, and at Walmart, $2.12 for that same 2-pound container. So definitely look at the sizes and see what would work better for you. If you're on a really tight budget, maybe just try to get the $1 spaghetti or penne if possible, and just see how it goes and see how much you use pasta. But it's a really great ingredient because it really pairs well with a lot of things, just like canned tomato sauce, which you can get some at Dollar Tree for $1.25, around $1 at Walmart, Aldi, and Target. So just a little bit more expensive at Dollar Tree, but it's great for making homemade Spanish rice. You can make homemade pasta sauce or pizza sauce. You can whip up a delicious chili using your beans, seasoning, and the tomato sauce, and then put it on top of rice. Just so many different things you can do with a can of tomato sauce. And they do have these smaller size tomato sauce cans too for about 50 cents a can. 50 or 60 cents or so, and that's going to be for about an 8-ounce can. So just depending on what the budget allows, you can get any size that you feel like you would actually use. So if you're a single person, you may want to get a smaller one, but if you do have a freezer, you can just freeze the other half. Next on my list would be chickpeas, and you can get a can of chickpeas for about $1.25 at Dollar Tree, 94 cents at Walmart, or 87 cents at Aldi. So just depending on what store you're going to get these from, they are a really great tool to use for adding all kinds of flavor and protein to your dishes. You can make homemade hummus and use your chips in the pantry to eat those with. Just all kinds of great options for chickpeas. Now next is some bouillon. Now this is obviously very, very optional, but if you're okay with more sodium, and I do believe some of these do have MSG in them, so just be aware of that. But if you're okay with that, it is a great way to add flavor to soups and rices, and it's very inexpensive and easy to keep on hand. If you want a different option though, soy sauce is my next recommendation. Again, $1.25 at Dollar Tree, $1.58 at Walmart, and about the same price at Aldi, $1.55. So this is going to be great for adding that umami flavor to soups, or adding some extra flavor to Asian dishes, stir fries. The sky is the limit with soy sauce, and I think it is a great replacement for salt or even for a chicken bouillon. So soy sauce is something I always grab anytime I need a little bit more saltiness and some of that umami flavor that I like to have in my soups and stir fries, and just a lot of different other recipes as well, especially for marinades and sauces. Next on my pantry list is sugar. And a lot of times you're going to think maybe I'll grab some granulated sugar, but I actually recommend getting a brown sugar because it is just regular white sugar mixed with molasses. It's more rich and it's great for baking and adds that nice chew to cookies. And it's really great to make your own barbecue sauce with that canned tomato sauce. And it's usually more cost effective because you can get $1.25 for a pound or $2 for 2 pounds. So if you don't have a ton on hand to buy sweetener, I definitely recommend doing brown sugar or getting some honey, which is also really versatile. And I actually grab honey more than any other sweetener that I have because it's great to make dressings with. It's great to add to homemade breads or cookies or any kind of baking that you're doing. It just is a really versatile ingredient, although it's a little bit more expensive at about $4. Now, Now yeast is next. You can get a 3-pack of yeast for 89 cents at Aldi or $1.20 at Walmart. I was not able to find it at my Dollar Tree, but of course it's great for making bread or any kind of dough that you want to have a rise to it usually. So great to have it on hand, and it lasts a really long time. And while we're talking about baking powder is essential as well. You could usually get about 8 ounces for around $2 at any of the stores I mentioned, and it's really great to have on hand to bake up all kinds of different things, including bagels, breads, muffins. I just highly recommend having baking powder on hand, but if you can't find it, you can also pick up some sort of pancake or biscuit mix to have on hand to be able to do a little bit more baking, because it usually has baking powder or some sort of leavening in it to allow for the rise to occur. So that could be an option for you. And next is ramen. And this one can be pretty controversial, but you can get a bunch of ramen for about $3 at most stores, $1.25 at the Dollar Tree for certain options as well. And it's just a really great thing to have on hand for emergencies or times where you really just need to avoid going out to eat or just need something very fast and just to get a meal on the table. I do recommend having this, but of course the seasoning packet has a lot of sodium, so keep that in mind. I think you'll be surprised by this next recommendation, but it's applesauce. Unsweetened applesauce is a really great staple to have in the pantry. Of course, you can eat it as is, and they have it at the Dollar Tree for $1.25, including some individual pouches as well for about the same price. And if you were to go to Walmart or Aldi, you could get a large container for about $2.59 or around that price. But it's not just great for eating on its own, which of course it's great for, and of course adding it to your lunch bag to bring to work, or you can use it as a replacement for a lot of ingredients in baking. It is a little bit of a sweetener and also works great instead of eggs. So applesauce is just one of those things that is really stable in the pantry, but can be used for so many things. Got to have that on hand. With all of that being said, if you were to purchase everything I mentioned in this video, it should run you around $40 depending on your stores and locations available. But there are lots of other ingredients that I would recommend. There's a lot of other options. Lots of different sauces, there's vinegars, just a lot of different things based on your personal taste that you could pick up. So you can start writing your list and really thinking about the things that you would like to cook. But starting off with this list so far will really give you a lot of leeway on what you're going to be cooking in the kitchen. And when you need to make a substitution, you're going to have something on hand that you can reach for. So next, I want to start talking about what I would make with just these ingredients. And let me tell you, there are a lot of different recipes other than the ones that I'm about to mention here. So definitely use a site like supercook.com to put in what you have on hand so you can see what kind of recipes you can make with just your pantry essentials. This first recipe that I'm showing you is just a very easy, simple tortilla, and we're only going to be using a few ingredients. First, I'm going to be adding about 2 cups of flour to a mixing bowl and adding a half a teaspoon of salt. I'm just going to give that a good mix and then add about 3/4 of a cup of water and 3 tablespoons of olive oil. And this recipe that I'm showing you right now makes about 8 tortillas, and I usually double it. So in my meal planning guide, I have the recipe listed for 8 tortillas, but oftentimes I like to just have extra and just like to put the remaining tortillas in the refrigerator. They last several weeks in an airtight container, and so I just always make extra if I'm already going to be doing this. So once I've mixed all of the dough together, I'm going to turn it out onto a floured surface and knead it just about 10 times. That's all it takes. Then I will cover it and let the dough rest for about 10 minutes or so. Once that 10 minutes is up, I am just going to go ahead and start cutting the dough. I like to use this bench scraper just because it makes it so fast and easy. If you don't have one, it only costs maybe $5 or $6, and it's really great to have on hand for all kinds of things, especially if you're working with dough or if you are trying to just scoop up ingredients from a cutting board. It's a really great little tool there. So in this video, I'm showing you actually a 4 times of this recipe here. So you can just do a one time and just make the 8 tortillas. But again, I just figure if I'm already mixing up all the dough, I just make extra. And you can freeze tortillas too. So now I'm just going to be cutting it into approximate even pieces. Each ball is going to be 8 slices of dough, and then I'll just roll it into a ball so it's just a little bit easier to get a circle when I roll it out. Now there's all kinds of really easy ways to make tortillas. You can get a tortilla press, and then you won't have to mess around with actually rolling it with a rolling pin, and that is a really great tool to have if you're going to be making a ton of tortillas all the time. But I find that just sort of using a couple cutting boards to smash it to get it started, that works too. So you really don't have to get a ton of tools. I would just recommend at least having a rolling pin and then either a knife or a bench scraper for cutting the dough into pieces. Other than that, though, you don't need a ton of tools. And then once we're done getting that all nice and rolled out really, really thinly to about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick, we're just going to put that on a skillet. You can use cast iron or nonstick, whatever you have on hand, that's fine. Once you start seeing the bubbles form, then it's about time to flip. And then once bubbles form again, then it's all cooked through and that's it. Then it's okay if they're totally wonky tortillas, by the way. They don't have to be perfectly circle, shapes. They can look rustic, as I call it, and they will still taste delicious. So you don't have to be a perfectionist at this. It'll turn out beautifully any way that you roll it, any shape that you like. But I do recommend making them relatively large if you're looking to make burritos, but you can also make them smaller if you want to make fajitas or something like that. And then you can just store them in an airtight container in the refrigerator, and that's it. The next thing that you can make, adding just one other staple from your pantry, is you can make homemade chips with those tortillas. It's very easy. I usually just stack about 4 tortillas on a cutting board and then cut them into chip pieces, which is just cutting, the tortilla in half and half again, and then in half again, just to get any size that you like. And there's a few different ways that you can cook the chips, which is great because it really doesn't matter what you have on hand. You could probably cook them in anything really, but I recommend doing either in the oven by tossing it in oil and then putting it on one even layer on a baking sheet and baking that, or putting it in the air fryer after you've tossed them with oil. Of course, you're going to salt after they come out. Right immediately as soon as they come out, you're going to salt them. Now, if you're frying in a pan, make sure you look up the proper techniques and temperatures for doing this safely, but you're going to need more oil if you are going to be frying this in a pan on the stove. So just keep that in mind. It may be a little bit more budget friendly to do it in the air fryer or the oven, but of course the texture does make a difference depending on how you cook them. But I do like them in the air fryer or baked or on the stovetop. They all turn out delicious. Just make sure again that you salt them after you take them out, after they are done cooking and they're still warm. So good. The next thing that you can make, which is probably one of my favorite things to ever use pantry essentials for, is focaccia bread. Now, this recipe is not mine, so if I can find the link again to this recipe, I'll put it down in the description for you, but it just uses flour, yeast, and salt, and then some water, and then a lot of oil. First, we just start by mixing all the dry ingredients with the water, and once that's fully mixed together, that's when we're going to put some oil on the dough, and then you're just going to let it rest and follow the instructions. Now, if I don't have the link to the specific recipe, there are a lot of focaccia recipes on the internet that are just like this, that use the same ingredients, maybe just different measurements. So it's a very basic, common recipe. And I will say that this is probably one of the easiest recipes I have ever made. And I love that you can make the dough a day ahead of time and leave it in the refrigerator to rise. And then when you get home from work, you can finish all of the prep by putting the oil in your baking dish. As you can see, it's a lot of oil, so just keep that in mind. I am using vegetable oil, but you can just follow the instructions on the recipe and use whichever oil that you have on hand, and I think it would work really great. I do think avocado oil would be really good with this too, but if all you have is olive oil, that will work really good too. So this one is excellent and can, easily be modified based on what you have on hand, so I absolutely love it. So you can see the dough has risen again, and we're just going to do the fun part, which is the dimpling. And if you haven't done focaccia bread, definitely try it. I think it's going to blow your mind. Seriously, so easy. If you're a beginner baker, this is the recipe to start with because it is really hard to mess this one up, and it is full of flavor, and you're going to feel like a chef or a professional just baking this up. So give this one a try. Next, I'm going to show you another bread recipe, but this one is great because it comes together in under 2 hours. This is my 2-hour no-knead bread recipe, and it is on my my blog. I'll put a link down in the description for this specific recipe, but all it uses is about 425 grams of flour, which I recommend weighing out if you have a kitchen scale, but if you don't, that's about 3 1/4 of a cup of all-purpose flour, then 2 teaspoons of salt, and then roughly a teaspoon of honey or sugar. You can use brown sugar. Honestly, you can use any sweetener that you have on hand for this, or if you like, you can omit the sweetener altogether. Then a packet of yeast, and then 1 1/2 cups of warm water, and that's all this uses. So just flour, salt, sweetener, yeast, and water. And once you mix it all together, you just let it rest covered until it doubles in size, and then we're just going to turn it out onto a floured surface, sort of bring the edges to the middle, just, all 4 sides essentially, so it sort of looks almost round and more like a bread shape, I guess. Then we're going to put it on our parchment paper because this just makes it easier to transfer into the Dutch oven. And if you don't have a Dutch oven, you can just use a baking sheet with a stainless steel bowl put upside down over it. So there's a lot of different ways that you can bake it, or you could even bake this in a loaf pan. I just covered my loaf pan with foil and baked it just as normal, and then removed the foil for the last 5 or 10 minutes of baking time, and it turned out beautifully as sort of like a sandwich bread. Of course, it's a different texture than sandwich bread, but it turned out really amazing. So really, whatever you have on hand, you can make it work, and you can always just look it up on the internet for different ways to bake if you don't have a Dutch oven. But I promise this is a very easy recipe, and definitely one of those that you should give a try, especially if you aren't too sure about bread, and if you're not sure if you can do it, try this one. It is foolproof, and it's worked for me every single time I've tried it. So I hope you love this one, and definitely come back and let me know how it went if you do decide to try it. This next recipe is just simple, easy black beans, and this recipe can work for any kind of bean that you have on hand. With dry beans, I found that if you soak them for longer, maybe longer than 8 hours or so, then they're easier to digest and they cook more evenly. So I recommend doing that. Pour out the water and add new water when you're going to be cooking it. And then you just bring it to a simmer. If you want it to have a nice thick consistency, leave it uncovered. And if you want it to have more of the water, the liquid in there, then just leave it covered. And it's just going to take about 70 to 90 minutes, depending on how long you soak the beans, in order for them to be cooked. And that's it. It's so easy. You can add any seasonings that you like to, any salt, or you can even add some really finely diced red onions or whole garlic cloves. I mean, the sky's the limit for adding flavor to beans. And I did not know how to do this for the longest time. And so I tell anybody who will listen how to make beans from scratch, because it really is so easy. You can even throw them in the Instant Pot like I'm showing you here. And if you do it this way, you actually don't have to soak your beans at all. That can be a really great way to save time too. Next, I'm going to be showing a really easy recipe for chili beans, just like the cans of chili beans that you get at the store. This is that kind of recipe. So we're just going to start the beans like we normally do. We're just going to put them in water for about 6 hours or more. Overnight is best. Then strain that out, add it to a pot, and add new water. It's going to be about 6 to 8 cups of water again. And then we're going to be adding some garlic powder and onion powder and salt and pepper. Again, we're just seasoning the beans just like normal. And then once that is done cooking and they're all the way cooked through, this takes about 60 minutes or so, and you can see that most of the water is gone. Then we're going to add our can of tomato sauce, just an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce, then some chili powder, garlic powder, and onion powder. And then we're just going to mix that all together and just continue to simmer for about 5 or 10 minutes. And that's it. Your chili beans are done, and you can just separate them into smaller portions. You can freeze them, and then you'll end up with at least 3 or 4 cans of chili beans in your freezer. Next, I'm going to show you a really easy pinto bean recipe, and I'm going to turn these pinto beans into homemade refried beans, just using a couple extra ingredients. I do recommend either doing onion powder and garlic powder or adding some white or yellow onion and some whole garlic cloves when you're cooking this. Again, that's just to add flavor. So if you don't have any of those things on hand, that's totally fine. Just add salt if you have it, so that way you at least have some flavor there. Once those are cooked through like normal beans, we're going to heat our cast iron skillet. And again, be very careful. I'm heating some oil here and then carefully pouring some of those beans with the bean water into the nice hot skillet. And I'm just going to start smashing the beans. And this is all you really need to do to make refried beans. It's really surprising. You can do this with black beans too. I love refried black beans. And then you get to decide how smashed you like them. And if you want to keep some pieces of whole beans in there or not, then just add more of the bean water to get the consistency that you like. And then you can separate it and freeze that too. This next recipe is just one way to sort of level up your rice game. It's a very simple Spanish rice recipe. You're just going to heat some oil in a pot and then add your rice and just saute that for about 5 minutes until it gets nice and browned. Then you can add your water or your broth, tomato sauce, garlic or garlic cloves, and some cumin and salt. And then you're just going to mix it all together, cover it up, and let that go until it's nice and cooked through about 20 minutes, depending on what kind of rice you have. And that's it for that recipe. It is so easy. I just want to briefly talk about oatmeal because I think this is one of the most underrated ingredients in a pantry, to be honest, because you can use it to thicken soups. Obviously, here I'm showing you how to just make a regular oatmeal with bananas breakfast, just like it says on the box. So you could do that for breakfast. It has about 30 servings per container. So that really is a super inexpensive filling breakfast that you can have on hand all the time in your pantry. And you can really zhuzh it up any way that you like with chopped nuts or dried fruit or any kind of fruit that you have on hand. You can add brown sugar to add the sweetness or some honey, whatever you have on hand. So it's really great. But on top of breakfast, if you didn't know, you can use oatmeal to make dinners as well. And savory oats is one of the recipes that I discovered that is just mind-blowing because it turns out so delicious, and who knew that oatmeal could end up being a delicious savory dish? At least I didn't know. So I'm showing you here one of my favorite savory oats recipes. It comes together in about 10 minutes, and that's why I love it so much. So I'm just adding some soy sauce and sriracha when I'm making the oatmeal, just like it says on the packaging, just adding whatever seasonings that I like. Then I'm adding in some corn. You can use frozen corn, canned corn, whatever you have on hand. And then I'm just going to fry an egg on the side and add it with hot sauce, and that's it for this dinner. Super filling, really delicious. You've got to try savory oats if you haven't before. This next set of recipes uses an additional ingredient or two from the refrigerator, but I think they're worth mentioning because they are very simple to make, don't take a ton of time, and if you were to buy the ready-made item at the store, it would be pretty expensive. So I think it's definitely worth it to know these recipes. So if you're ever in a pinch and you want to do something different, or just, you're getting bored, it'd be nice to know these recipes. So this first one, we're actually making bagels, and we're just using Greek yogurt, baking powder, and flour, and that's it, and a little bit of water for brushing. But we're just going to mix everything together until it's nice and combined and the dough is still a little bit sticky. We're just going to turn the dough out onto a floured surface and knead it for about 3 to 4 minutes, and that's probably the most time-consuming part here, or the most labor-intensive part. That is 3 or 4 minutes of kneading. And then once that's done, though, it's pretty easy after that. You're just going to cut it. Again, I use my bench scraper, but you can use a knife. Just cut it into even pieces, and then you're just going to roll them into a ball and then poke a hole in the middle to make that bagel shape. And you're just going to stretch it a little bit to make sure there's a little bit more space in the middle there. And then you're just going to brush it with some water. You can brush it with some egg wash instead, or a little bit of butter, whatever you like. And then we're just going to bake it for 22 to 25 minutes or so at 400 degrees until it's nice and golden brown and cooked through. And then you just want to make sure you let it rest after you take it out. This just ensures that they're cooked all the way through. It takes about 20 minutes or so for them to rest properly, and then you can enjoy them. And I love it because you can freeze the bagels too after you slice them, and then just have them readily available. Just throw them straight in the toaster or the oven from the freezer, and you've got some delicious bagels on hand. Now, if you don't want to use yogurt, you can use cottage cheese instead. And I'll say the cottage cheese bagel recipe is also one of my all-time favorites. The flavor is incredible. And again, that just uses cottage cheese, flour, baking powder, salt. And then if you want to use an egg for egg wash, you can, but again, you can just use water. I highly recommend looking up some recipes on the internet for things that you normally buy at the store ready-made, and just see if it's worth your time to make it at home with things that you already have on hand. I have made several things that I did not know were so easy to make, including granola bars, homemade nut bars, like those Kind bars I'm always spending a lot of money on. And next, I want to show you a very easy syrup recipe that just uses brown sugar, water, and butter. And you're just going to simmer, you know, just the sugar and the water, and then add the butter. And it's really just that easy to make syrup. So simple things like this that I just honestly, I didn't know it was so easy to make. And I'm doing my best to share these recipes and this information with you all so you can see just how easy it is to make certain things at home without having to spend the money on the ready-made item at the store. Like this vegetable broth, for instance, is just veggie scraps and water simmered for a couple hours and then strained. And that's it. It's unbelievable. I hope y'all loved that video and at least got some inspiration for things to stock your pantry with or some new recipes to try. And I'd love to hear what you think if you try anything, or if you have any additional things in your pantry that you think I missed, please put those down below in the comments. I'm always looking for more tips and tricks, and I think everybody would love to read everyone's suggestions. So please be sure to do that. Now, I do have my new meal planning guide available for download, and I've got lots of these recipes in it, as well as the pantry stock up list. So go ahead and check that out down below in the description. I'll put the link there for you. And I do have all of these recipes on my blog as well. And if I don't, I'll be sure to put a link down below for where you can find those recipes. Now, YouTube thinks that you'd like to watch another video. So click this one over here, wherever it is, and check that out and enjoy it, hopefully. And if you need more inspiration for budget-friendly meals or just need something to cook for tonight, check out my channel. I've got a lot of ideas for you. Now, I really hope to see y'all in the next video. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'll see ya. Bye.